Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and welcome to Driving Lessons for ADHD Part 3, which is the actual driving sessions. Driving. And I'm going through this book, which is a driving license for daily life for you with ADHD. I want to remind you guys that I'm not a mental health professional. I do happen to be a medical resident. I am not diagnosed with ADHD or autism or any other diagnosis. The only thing I have is depression and anxiety and burnout, if you can count this as a diagnosis. Anyway, we're going to be talking about what we can do to strategies to plan, to organize, and to problem solve in our daily lives. And so these are about tools and to be nice to ourselves, which is especially important if we have ADHD or any kind of difficulty for that matter. And so sometimes like the wheels are stuck, so we need to get the driving going. So it's like, and then it says here, make sure that you get the help that you need. What do you have to lose? Now we start. Here we go. So first step is to use a calendar and a notebook. Okay, so this is their first, like the basic level of organization and planning. So when we have ADHD, our working memory is low, and it's hard to keep a lot of things in your head. So work with your mind by having the tools ready. So make time visual using a calendar or an agenda or something like that. So you need to practice this, and this takes time. And there are certain thoughts that might pop up in your head, like, I can't have this calendar with me every day. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to forget to write in it. I can't just walk around with a notebook. But it's okay. It might work this time, so we need to try. So the first step is to have a calendar, a portable calendar, and a notebook. It should always be with you if you want this system to work. So there are different ways to do this. You can have digital, you can have paper, you can use colors. It's good to have it clear and have structure. There are apps, all sorts of things, but don't use apps if you're not used to using apps. Karl, our fictitious, well, he's not fictitious, but he's our example in this case. He has tried different systems, but nothing has really worked. So he wanted to have a little calendar to have in his pocket. To have it in your pocket and to keep it in the pocket. And he uses that booklet, the calendar, to write down his appointments with the therapist. And so that goes actually really well, because he remembers to come to the appointments when he writes them down. But he has more of a difficulty with the notebook, because the notebook is bigger, so he can't really do that. So what he tries to combine the calendar and a notebook, but this doesn't work for Karl. So in the end, the therapist buys him a little like booklet that is the same size as the calendar, and then Karl is really happy, and it actually works. And then, because having two books is too much organization, she finds a little folder to put the two booklets in. And that helps Karl a lot, because like he doesn't take one without the other. He has it in the folder. So for me, I have my diary, which I guess is my notebook. It's a little small thingy. It's a fake moleskin. And it's been used quite a lot, but I haven't actually been using it since I burnt out. I use the front as my journaling, which I haven't done since the 10th of April. And the back is where I write like lists. So I have like things that like movies that I've seen, and a list and things to look forward to in 2023 I wrote here. And I check off like the series that I've watched and the albums that I've listened to that are new. I also write down poetry and stuff in here. So I do have this this booklet, and here's like songs about robots. I've got like a list of songs about robots to put in my Instagram stories. I do write about certain things, but I haven't been using it that much because I just can't get it's difficult to write a journal for me. Usually I write a journal when I feel like at my worst, and so it reminds me of bad things. So maybe I should get a whole different booklet. So the strategy number 1 is to use the calendar. I don't have a physical calendar. I have that weekly calendar where I write what I'm going to do that week. So that's enough for me because I don't have that many meetings and stuff. So it says that you should train to look at it every day and just write the things that have an actual day and time. So I don't do that. I do write the things that are day and time, but I also write like the tasks that I have to do in this calendar thing. But there are different ways of doing things. The strategy number 2 is using the notebook. That's for everything that doesn't have to do with a specific date. So don't have a bunch of post-it notes everywhere. Try to keep it together. So that's our driving lesson number 1. Our driving lesson number 2 is to organize and prioritize. And that's difficult because we're usually so overwhelmed by everything. And so the most important things don't get done because we get distracted by other things that we have to do. So we have to reflect and think first before we actually do things. So strategy number 1 is to use a checklist of things to do. Write it down and check it off and just write this stuff. So Karl wrote up a list here, and we can write up a list here. It's things to do. So Karl, he is moving into a new apartment. So his number 1 is to put up the paintings. Number 2 is to buy a shower curtain. Number 3 is to buy a mattress for his bed. And number 4 is to ask his sister if he can use her computer. And number 5 is make sure that he has music in his apartment. And number 6 is that he needs a charger for his phone. The way to prioritize is to try to first write down everything and then put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and then rewrite it in the order that it should be done. But the way to prioritize is not always easy. So this is strategy number 2. Prioritize with A, B, C. A is things that can be done quickly, today or tomorrow. They're the important things that need to be done today or tomorrow. The B are things that are less important, but that can be done in a longer time period. And the C things are the least important. And often there are pretty easy things that might make us want to do those things first, but they're not as important as A and B. So this is what Karl's ABC is. He realizes that actually the A, the most important thing, is fixing a charger for his phone. And so he made this list the 16th of April. And so he tries to make sure that he has a chart here about this is A, B, C, what it is, the date that he decides to do this goal, and the date that he actually clears the goal. He tries to do these things in order. So you can see that the dates actually are in order. He realizes that having the charger for the phone is actually an A thing. Buying the mattress for his bed is also an important thing because he needs to be able to sleep somewhere. So those are both A. B are things that are a little bit less important. They don't need to be done like today. He has to buy a shower curtain and he has to ask about the computer. And then the C are the things that, well, he actually wanted to do first, but are, because they're kind of fun, but they're not really that extremely important. So putting up the paintings or making sure that he has music in his apartment is C. So what does Karl think of this? He likes it. That's basically it. So strategy number 3 when it comes to organizing and prioritizing is to visualize. And this is where we use the arrow again that we were using in the earlier videos. He uses the calendar is good to keep the meetings. The notebook is good to write the goals and to write other things that pop into his mind. But this is an overarching thing. So here we have a timeline of what Karl did for his house. So he has to start with like cleaning with the sofa. He has to get the table and the forks and knives, and then he has to get the table for the sofa, and then the TV. So like start from there until the end. And then it tells you to, well, if you can do a timeline of the things that you have to do. So you can like just put the stuff in the ABC onto that timeline so you can visualize it all. So it says that it's difficult for people with ADHD to do this. People just assume that we're able to do this, but like we need to use those strategies in order to feel less stressed about all these things. So then Karl tries to use a smartphone. As we know, Karl does not like computers. I don't know why, but he doesn't like them. He's old, I think. And so they try to do it, but the system doesn't work, and the computer, well, the phone, it crashes, and he doesn't know how to deal with this, and everything gets chaotic. So he realizes that things that are simple for you to use are the best. So for him, it wasn't smartphones. For him, it was like the 2 physical copies of books. So the actual tool should not be more stressful than the actual thing. And so he tried to use notifications on the phone, but it stressed him out, so he did not like that. He wanted something more simple. But some people need to use the notifications because it helps them. So that's that. Okay, now we get into the next driving lesson. Okay, so this is driving lesson number 4, I think. No, it's number 3, because the first one was the using the diary and the calendar. The number 2 was how to organize and prioritize, and this one is to solve problems. If you want to like fix a big problem. So making a big problem into smaller parts, which makes it easier for you to deal with, because otherwise it's overwhelming. So strategy number 1 is doing 5 steps. The 5 steps are: think about the problem and write the problem. Brainstorm different solutions, which I think INFPs are good at. 3, is do the pros and cons of each solution. 4 is to write if those solutions, what you like, if you like it or not, from 1 to 10. And number 5 is to go through it and do the best alternative. So Karl has a problem because his computer, he lent his computer to his friend for some reason. And so he thought about 3 different ways to fix his problem. Number 1 was to call and to ask his friend if they can see each other tomorrow. The pro is that, well, he might answer, but the negative is that it's difficult to call on the phone. And he rated that solution as 6 out of 10. The second solution to getting back his computer is to actually drive by tomorrow. The pros is that he will quickly get the computer if this friend is at home. But the other problem is that if he's not at home, then he's going there in vain because he's not going to get his computer. So the solution, he rates that 5 out of 10, not as good. And the last solution is to wait until he calls. And the pros is that, well, it will work out because it's when he can see me. But the negative is that, well, maybe this guy will never call and he'll have to wait a long time. So that one he put at 3 out of 10. So that wasn't the best solution. So the best solution was to call his friend and ask if they can see each other tomorrow. So that's what he's going to do. And so here they give us a template for writing it down. So these are the solutions, these are the pros, these are the cons, and this is the 1 to 10. And then write what the best alternative is for the problem. So what does Karl think of this? He says that it's easier for him to see the different possibilities because then he can choose. And it's easier to choose once it's all clear on paper. But what happens is that Karl forgets to call the friend. So the strategy didn't work. And the question was can we do something different in order for him to be able to do this? And Karl is a bit suspicious, he's skeptical to the fact. He wanted to start his computer course, so now he doesn't have his computer. So time just passes and the problem does not get fixed. But then something happens. Because now he has another problem. He has to get a new cable to his computer. But actually, Karl had already fixed with that. So now he takes the next step, which is to get the curtains for his apartment. So they start talking about that. And he actually comes up with his own solution. He calls a friend to put up the curtains. And he said he doesn't know how it worked. It just happened. And so the therapist congratulates him for working on this. And sometimes things happen, it's not like we're really, sometimes we get inspired and do something. And sometimes the curve is not just upward, sometimes it goes up and down. And that's okay. It's better to do it in small steps than to want to do everything at once. So this is what the next strategy is about, how to put it in small steps. So first, choose what task you want to do. Make it in different steps. Check if all the steps are manageable steps. And 4 is to write it all down. So Karl wants to paint. He wants to paint oil paintings on a canvas. he wants to paint a photo that he has found from a newspaper, and he has now bought the canvas and the colors, but he can't like start. So like they talk about like what is it that stops Karl from starting, and like sometimes he thinks that he won't manage because he won't have the energy, or it doesn't work if he's hungry. And so then they decide that he's going to paint after breakfast on a day where he doesn't have to work. So here they made one of these timelines that we were talking about before of how to get to this is actually the goal, which is to paint on a canvas. And first you have to and this is where like the obstacles come. So first he has to he has to fix the canvas, and then he feels like, I can't deal with this, I'm too tired. Okay, then he starts thinking, I'm hungry. Then he starts putting up the canvas, and then he has to prepare the canvas, and then he has to choose a photo, and then he has to start to paint. So that's where it's difficult. So he has to start with like getting rid of these obstacles. So if he's hungry, he has to eat beforehand, and he has to do it when he's well rested so that he doesn't feel tired. He has to focus on the thing and look at his list. So they start using these things for first his apartment, but then also for his creative project. And it's easier to learn new things if you have fun and it's in your life direction that we talked about in the first video. So to keep the motivation, he has to make things as easy as possible for each other. And he's using these strategies for fun things, so it kind of gives him motivation for all the other things that he needs these tools for. So then they ask us, like, well, choose a goal, choose the different steps, check if the steps are like possible, and write them down, and then take a step at a time. So at the beginning it can feel a little bit weird, but it's okay, because in the long run it will make things easier and easier. And it's difficult, but you need to practice, basically. Something that the occupational therapist told me as well, maybe I should use a checklist when I go to the store, so that I can check off things on my shopping list. And I was like, well, I'll always forget the shopping list. But if I never take the shopping list with me, then obviously it won't work. So I need to practice and practice. And this is the last bit, which is the positives and negatives with change. And this is ACT based. And I've actually seen this before. It's difficult to change because we have to leave behind our comfort zone. And so you need to feel motivated to come to change. And often we think of like bad memories or like failures, and we feel like this is impossible. And so we need to think about the pros and cons. So he asks, so first we have to choose a strategy, and using the strategy, what are the strategies that he wants to do, and what are the pros and cons of using them, and what are the short-term consequences and what are the long-term consequences. So he chooses. He wants to do the ABC thing that we were talking about earlier, about prioritizing according to how important it is to be done now. So what are the positives of doing this, of prioritizing in this way? Well, it's good, it can be structured, it can feel better to just think about the A and not about the B and the C first, so that you know what to do first. That's the short-term positives. Thing is, so that's the short-term positives. What are the short-term negatives is that it's difficult to do that, and it takes a lot of effort. The long-term positives is that you can learn to prioritize the important things first, and in the long run he'll be able to do this on his own. The negatives long-term is that maybe he'll forget to use the strategy, and yeah. So Karl realizes that there are more positives than negatives, so he's happy about that. So it's kind of like a little chart like this. It's based off ACT, but ACT is actually a little bit different, this chart. It's called like the four chart, where it's like positive, negative, negative, positive. Maybe it'll come out later, I don't know. So that was the end of this. So it's talking about the positives and the negatives of a certain strategy or a certain change that you want to make in your life. Usually they go through this in like an X formation in ACT. This is just from my own memory, is that usually you start with the positives of the thing, and then you go the positives of doing the change, the negatives of not doing the change, the positives of not doing the change, and then the negatives. I think that it's the other way around, actually, because I think that you want to end on what are the positives of doing the change. But I might be wrong. I do not know much about ACT. I just remember that we did a little bit about this in medical school. But in the end, the thing is to realize how much positive there is to gain while actually considering the negatives. So that's it for the driving lessons. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if I keep talking about ADHD and autism, even though I do not actually have the diagnoses, and I probably am just speculating out of thin air. It's not my meaning if I'm hurting people who actually have ADHD or autism. I just want, it's just that these strategies I think do help me. And so even if I don't have ADHD or autism, I'm doing this for my personal development. Okay, so tell me what you guys think. Have a great day.